Hey, how's everyone doing? It's Indy here with Ultimate Tour Reviews. Now, if you ever own an RV, you've been looking at buying an RV, of course, you've looked at probably the slide outs, and if you know anything about slide outs, it's not if, it's when they're going to leak. Now, one thing I did when I bought our RV for kind of doing trips here and there, and we have a lot of fun with it on the weekends, it's always pretty fun to have an RV. The one thing that we discovered with the slide outs are they leak, which of course is an obvious thing. Now, when you have the slide outs out, and we have ours under a tree right now, of course, because we want to kind of keep it in the shade if we can, get the UV damage off of it, you're going to get a couple of things that happen with the slide outs. You're going to get A, you're going to get, of course, tons of leaves on those slide outs. You're going to get B, rain, which of course you do not want any type of leaks in your slide outs. This slide out actually was the big reason I kind of started doing this project, is because it actually had a pretty bad leak right about on this side here, and this almost entire slide out was replaced under warranty before we actually bought it. We actually bought this thing secondhand, and it was used. I don't know how many miles it had on it or how long it was used necessarily, but there was some things repaired under warranty on this thing, which kind of shows you, of course, I guess the poor build quality of the RVs is well known, of course. And I've done a number of repairs of this thing already. But the biggest thing they tried to sell me was at the RV place was, hey, you got to pick out these slide out awnings. They kind of bolt into the RV, they bolt into the slide out. And they're kind of that, really cheesy, cheap fabric, but they want like $300-400 a slide out awning. So I've got 3 slide outs in this RV, that'd be well over $1,200. And I'm like, well, I don't want to add more, penetrations to the RV. The more screws, things you put in the RV like that, the more chance you have to leak. And the point of a slide out awning or something to protect your slide outs is to prevent leaks. Why would I put more penetrations to put an awning cover on if I'm just encouraging more leaks to happen? So I said, hey, is there a better way to do this that would meet 3 things? A, I want to keep this thing well under budget. I don't want to spend $1,200, something silly like that. B, I want to be able to take this thing apart without much issue and store it in the back of my truck. So when we do move the RV, I can take these with me, no problem. And finally, the third thing I wanted to see was I want 0 penetrations. I want absolutely no screws, no nails, nothing on these. So let me show you guys what I did. So I went back and forth for how I wanted to design these exactly to go on the RV, as well as what material I wanted to use. I wanted to use something that was going to be, reflective of sunlight, but at the same time, lightweight, and most importantly, somewhat affordable. As the awning covers are, $300-400 a piece, that was way too expensive for what I wanted to spend. So I used a plastic roofing material, kind of a plastic corrugated roofing material that I found at Lowe's actually. Home Depot has it too, but it's a bit more expensive, and I did not want to use clear. I wanted to use something that's going to be white, so it'll reflect the sunlight as best as possible. And this stuff was actually pretty affordable. I think it's like 15 bucks a sheet. I use a total of, I think, 8 sheets of it for the entire slide outs. For all 3, so relatively affordable for what it is. You can actually cut it with a scissors, which is no big deal, and I just use self-tapping screws to secure it together. All I did was interlap each of the corrugated boards, about 1 corrugation over, 1 wave over, whatever you call that, and I just get a couple of screws going down. That way, when I take this off, you can actually just roll this up into a nice, tight little bundle. It's super easy to use. So the next problem I had was, well, how do I secure it now to the top of the RV? So far, and I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but I haven't figured it out just yet, is what I did was I started using these little paving stones. And I'm in Florida, and we of course see pretty decent wind at times out here. So I wanted this thing to be able to survive at least 40 to 50 mile an hour winds, because we do get some thunderstorms come in, we get some strong gusts of wind here, and I have had these rip off the RV before with other ideas that I had. This so far has been the best idea that I've discovered up to this point. What I did was I used a couple of furring strips, 1 below, 1 on top, and it basically locks in that paving stone on there, and this thing does not move now. I found that the magic number for paving stones is about every 4 feet to have 1 paving stone on there. These, of course, are about $2 at Lowe's, $2.50 at Lowe's, and I need a total of 12 of those. Actually, 8 of those, actually. I thought I used 12 of these, but no, 8 of these exactly total, and that is all I needed. So again, total project cost, I believe I'm right at around $250. So about half the price of 1 of those awnings. I was able to do all 3 of my awnings. I believe had a much better quality. I can actually take them down quite easily, and there are 0 penetrations into the RV as well too. So that's really what I was going for. Let me show you how I attach them to the actual slide out itself. Okay, so in the actual slide out itself, there is nothing screwed into the slide out. I'm purely just using a board, and then on top of that board, I'm using a couple of screws. I'd say for each slide out, I'm using about 15 screws to screw into that board, and of course unscrew them, no problem. And then that board is just using a clamp to hold it to the slide out. Now, I noticed an issue quickly on with this was that whenever a wind would hit this, it would cause it to make a little bit of a wave. It would kind of pick up that white roofing material a little bit and then kind of toss it around a little bit. So I use about 15 screws. About every 8 inches you put a screw down, that roofing material will actually stay locked down to that board. And then all you need is 2 clamps, one on each side, to clamp it down. And there you go. It holds it down, no problem. And here's a piece of that roofing material that I used. What I like about it is you can just roll it up even when it's still attached. So when you still connect a couple of these together and you have a couple of screws in there, it'll still roll up like this, no problem. I can fit this right in the bed of my truck, no big deal at all. Now up on top of there, I've got those boards. I've got them actually cut into thirds and I just have them screwed together. So you can of course unscrew those, put them in your truck, and you're good to go. The entire thing breaks down relatively easily. I'd say I'm at about maybe 8 minutes per slide out. So within about 25, 28 minutes, I can have all of these broken down and I'm good to go. Now in rainfall, it keeps almost all the water off the slide outs, which is really cool. Of course, you're gonna get a little bit of white rainfall is gonna hit on the top of the roof and it's gonna kind of come down, of course, at the slide out, but it's a reduction of say about 95% of water hitting that slide out. And of course, UV, it's 100% reduction there in UV. Leaves are still gonna get in there, you know, here and there when you get windiness, but again, probably a 95% reduction in leaves and in tree debris. Of course, in Florida here, we get a ton of pollen in the spring, so seeing a huge reduction in that pollen as well too. So the slide outs overall are staying about 95% cleaner. We're getting no more issue with any water on there that's causing, you know, puddling or anything like that. It's been a absolutely huge help. Depending on how thick you use the board up there, I've got mine sticking just a hair above, about 2 inches above the actual slide out. Now I could use a little bit thinner of a board, that's possible too, but I wanted to have it a little higher to give myself not such a steep roof slant there, so the water comes off nice and easy. Not too quick, but it'll still pull all the pollen, all the debris off with it. That's kind of what I was going for. But let me show you on this side here, I've got another clamp there that holds it on. Only 2 clamps is all that I need. These boards are actually decently heavy, so they kind of stay put themselves without really much of a fuss there. And from what I've discovered with putting a little screw about every 8 or so inches on there, that keeps this thing really locked down. Let me grab a blower, guys, and I'll show you just how resistant this is to wind. All right, let's take a blower and blow right up in there and simulate some high-speed winds. Now notice how much little noise you hear. It barely moves at all. That's what I was definitely going for, to keep this thing as stable as possible, but yet without a single penetration into your RV. You can take this entirely off and have no idea that was ever on there. There isn't a single hole. Nothing is holding it on there other than a couple of clamps. And of course, just weight from those paving stones on top. That is it. Super simple to do. Well, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Hope this was helpful if you're looking at doing something else than, of course, buying an RV slide-out awning. This, of course, is a pretty simple, pretty easy to do. I would say about an hour per slide-out is what it took me. Once you get the first one pretty well down, you can do them pretty quick and get them up there, installed, and take them down relatively quickly. Once you understand how they all go together, how easy it is to get these things together, it's really not that big of a deal. But the protection it gives you, of course, against rain, tree debris, anything like that, hitting your slide outs is huge. That's really what I wanted to go for. Of course, something like this is going to reflect anything that's hitting it a lot better than those awnings. And if anything breaks in here, anything hits this or puts a puncture in this at all, these are super cheap to just make a repair on. Those slide-out awnings, well, you're kind of buying a new one or kind of getting those awnings refabric applied, whatever that is. I'm sure that's not cheap to do either. So repairability of these things is also fantastic. Anything you need to repair on this is no big deal at all. And I've been doing this now for about a year. It's been kind of a while in the making here of trying different revisions of this stuff, trying to see what works, what doesn't work, and of course keeping it within budget, and of course keeping this a very affordable, easy to do. If you have any questions, guys, leave them in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Take care.